Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to unbox a Louis Vuitton Neverfull bag. Now I know that unboxing videos are a little bit dreary, so I'll try to not be too inane and I'll just kind of cut to the chase and go through the main highlights. At any rate, this is my first unboxing video, so I guess that's somewhat exciting. Now what we have here, of course, is a box that has a Neverfull bag in it. It's very, very big. Then there's also a box that has a scarf in it, which is slightly less big, rather unsurprisingly. Now they have rather nice bows, which we can kind of look at, and yeah, they're done up nicely, at least better than I could do. So with that in mind, let's sort of unbox these and see what's actually inside. Alright, so let's start by unboxing the Neverfull bag itself. Now obviously I've already managed to mutilate the bow here, but anyway, we can take that apart and open it up. We can remove the bow, open up the box. Now the box itself has quite a bit of spare space in it, unsurprisingly, given that the Neverfull bag is not really going to take up the whole box. Now in here we obviously have a bag cover, and then if we open this up, we'll eventually get through to the bag. Now this particular one has this canvas cover here, but you can get it in multiple different types of designs. I personally prefer this design. I think this is probably the more interesting of them, but you can obviously get it in various other designs. So for example, you can get it just in the ordinary checkerboard type design, or you can also get it in leather, which is going to cost more. This one, of course, is canvas. The main downside of this particular one, of course, is the straps, and the leather outer part here is quite light, so it could easily get stained. Now, inside the bag, we effectively have a couple of things. Firstly, inside the bag, the color is this cherry color, but you can actually get it in red or in light pink. The bag also comes with another pouch here. Now the pouch is going to match the bag, i.e. it has the same type of internals, i.e. we have it in the pink here. You can also get it, like I said, in red or in a much lighter pastel pink. The pouch also makes this decent value because then you effectively have two bags when you're buying one. So you can use the pouch for whatever it is. So for example, to carry a wallet in during lunch or whatever. Now, if you have a look at the bag, it's reasonably large in that you can fit a decent amount in it, but it's obviously not massive. You probably wouldn't want to stretch it out, but you can still fit quite a decent amount into this bag. So that's pretty much what the bag is like. There's not a huge amount else to say about it. Next, unbox the scarf. Now I've managed to totally mangle this bow, but it doesn't really matter, we're taking it off anyway. So if we're opening this up, we have a box as well. Relatively unsurprising. What you have inside the box is this bag accessory scarf, which again isn't particularly thick. You wouldn't really be wearing it as an actual scarf, although they do try to convince you that you could. It might look a little bit strange depending on what you're wearing it with, and it's not very thick, but still it's probably going to be best used for a bag accessory. So that's basically what we have here. The design on this particular one is actually quite nice. The reason this one works quite well with this bag is you can kind of see a bit of a color contrast, which itself can actually work quite well once it's put onto the bag. You could of course get one in a more matching color. It really depends on your personal preference. I personally think it works better. When it's popping, there's more contrast here, so it's more noticeable and more interesting. But of course that's a matter of personal preference. And you could certainly get one that is much more muted and much more in line with the exact tones of this bag if you wanted it to just blend in. It really depends on what you like. Or alternatively, you could get multiple scarves so that you have variety. So that's one other option as well. So what we have here is the bag. You'll notice that because it has nothing in it, it doesn't really have that much shape, so we kind of need to expand it out. Now on the sides here, you have kind of these tassels. The tassels are basically decoration, but of course you can narrow it in to kind of seize up the sides if you'd like, so I'll just do that for the moment for the sake of completeness. Now in terms of the bag accessory scarf, there are a few ways to use it. The way that I generally use it is just as a bow, but you will see it sometimes wrapped around the handles, and if you wrap it around the handles, that will obviously prevent the leather from absorbing all of the oil from your hands. So if you have dirty hands, then that's useful because it will help the leather be maintained. That will of course come at the cost of the scarf, because over time if you're using it around the handle, then the scarf will obviously get kind of destroyed. Now if we're doing it as a bow here, you can really just do this up as a normal bow. My bow tying is pretty horrendous, so we'll see how this goes. I suspect it will just look like kind of a clown tie when I do it, but anyway, let's have a look at how it goes. So we can do it up as a bow, you put it down at the end here of the bag, and then you just tie it up. And then hopefully it won't look too awful. It looks not great. Honestly, it kind of looks a little bit ugly. They did it much better in the store. This would take some practice. It will take some practice for it to not look totally awful, kind of like, I don't know, a Ronald McDonald tie or something, but at any rate, that's kind of how you would have it there if you want it as a bow. If you want to wrap it around the handle here, that of course takes a lot more effort. So we can say try to tie it around the bag handle here. So one way to do this is you just start wrapping it. Now you have to be mindful of the length. So if it's too long or too loose, you'll obviously end up either A, running out of scarf, or B, you'll end up with too much dangling down here. So exactly how tightly you do it is going to have to depend on the material and the length thereof. And you can see that I'm just wrapping it around the handle here. I might run out of the scarf, but at any rate, we'll see. Now, the way that I'm doing it is obviously a little bit ugly, i.e. it isn't really very neat. You'd probably want to do it probably much more neater than I'm doing it. And this is probably going to be a little bit uncomfortable to hold, but nevertheless, it gives you an idea of what it would look like when it's wrapped around the handle. And it's not terribly difficult to achieve, but just one thing to bear in mind, it obviously is going to come loose throughout the day. Now what you'll notice here is I've left too much material at one end. If you've done that, you can probably just wrap it around a few more times. No one's really going to notice because they probably won't be staring that intently. Nevertheless, that's kind of how you would deal with too much material. Now at the moment, I've probably again left far too much material, haven't wrapped it tightly enough, but this gives you an idea of what it would ultimately look like and how you would ultimately tie it around the handle here so that you're able to preserve the leather if that's what you want to do. And again, that looks quite reasonable. One thing again you'll want to bear in mind here is that you might want to steam clean the scarf if it gets too many creases, because the more you use it like this, the more crease it's going to get, and therefore the more you'll need to steam it in order to get those creases out if you've been holding it like this for a long time. So I would encourage you between uses to take off the scarf just to avoid creases and to avoid damage. But anyway, those are the two ways that you'd use the scarf on the bag and how it would work as a bag accessory. So this then begs the question of, well, what about practicality? Because it kind of looks like it could be a bit of a bottomless pit bag, which is good if you want to fit a lot in there. It's bad if you want to avoid overburdening yourself. So in order to test this, I'll get a 15-inch laptop. Now this laptop, I don't even know if it really works, but it gives you an idea about what fits in here. Now what you'll notice is it fits in here very snugly, is probably the best way of putting it, in that it kind of looks a little bit weird to have a laptop that big in the bag, but it still works, i.e. you're able to fit a large laptop in here, but it comes at the cost of basically pushing out the sides here and pushing them out probably more than you want. But it still will fit. You can fit a large laptop, and you'll notice that even with this laptop, there's still quite a lot of space in here. So you're going to be able to fit other miscellaneous random junk in addition to the laptop if you need to use it for work purposes. So say we've got the laptop in here, we can also fit some other stuff. So what I have here is a tub of protein powder, which you might want to take into the office. That will barely fit, i.e. you're really pushing it out, but you could hypothetically carry quite a bit if you really needed to in a pinch. That's pretty much the limit. If we remove the laptop, however, you'd be able to fit something this big in there without too much difficulty, and it looks perfectly fine. So the real issue was the laptop absorbing a lot of space and preventing the bag from expanding out. Okay, so that's an exploration of this Louis Vuitton Neverfull bag. I personally quite like it. I think the material in the pattern is really quite nice, but of course there are multiple options for your personal taste. I also like the internals as well. I think the patterning and just the design and the color are quite nice here as well. Again, there are options for personal preference if you prefer red or light pink or whatever it is you prefer. Now the only downside really is to some extent the leather here. I like the contrast, but of course it does risk sometimes becoming a little bit discolored. It remains to be seen exactly what happens there. However, in general terms, Louis Vuitton is quite hard wearing, and things like the scarf here are going to help to prevent it wearing out and prevent it being discolored through things such as dirt or oil on your hands. So that should hopefully help. The scarf as well, I'd recommend getting accessories like this. Now the actual cost of these depends on exactly which one you get, so there can be some variation. If you really want, you can get the scarves secondhand quite easily. from companies like Aerobe, for example, which have some of these scarves that people are selling, and that can help you perhaps avoid those types of issues. Nevertheless, I found Louis Vuitton to be quite hard wearing, so this probably won't be the biggest concern, but it's something to bear in mind. Okay, so hopefully we've made it to the end of this unboxing video. If you're not bored out of your brains, it would be great if you clicked the like and subscribe buttons. Otherwise, thanks so much for listening. I hope it has been somewhat informative or useful or vaguely interesting to you, and I do hope to see you for future videos. So with that in mind, hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.